It's JoJo Friday. I have my Foo Fighters Fuel, and we have just watched Phantom Blood Episode 2, A Letter from the Past. Before we get started, Mr. AJ, first impressions.
I thought it was a bit, yeah. I'm very pleased that we had the Jim Carrey mask.
Your curiosity about what that mask do was finally satiated. We begin with 7 years later,
7 years after the credits?
which I think is a really bold choice. Would you agree with that?
I always thought it had something to do with the length of time you spend at time at secondary school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, any Harry Potter readers out there will recognize that that is how long British kids spend at secondary school. It could easily be. But
Although they're graduating from university, so it doesn't quite work out, does
it
it?
doesn't quite work. And canonically, I think these people are meant to be 22 this year. So it still doesn't quite work because they were 12 last time we saw them. But I guess maybe the last
If they were 12
episode
last time
took
they saw that,
place.
that would make them 19 now.
Right. But what I would posit is it possible that the events of episode one spanned a couple of years? I mean,
Possibly,
it's
maybe.
possible. A lot happened, that is for sure. So we get a caption, it's 1888, and when you see this date flash up, are you thinking, oh, something happened this year?
I always
Yes,
forget precisely what year or years of the Jack the Ripper murders happened. I do know it was roughly around then, wasn't it? So
it
yes, that's what I
was.
was
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah. And because your wife is an absolute ghoul, she is like, woohoo, right away. And just in case we didn't realize that this is Jack the Ripper time, we open on a spooky urban night scene. There's a crescent moon, there are cobblestones, there is literal gaslight to match the rest of the gaslight that's going on in this episode. A woman who's lying on the ground, she's dying. And then, really helpfully, our friend the narrator jumps in to tell us that, hey, this is Jack the Ripper. And then sort of do a little expectation management by telling us that Jack the Ripper's horror is nothing compared to the horror the feud between Dio and JoJo would unleash upon the world. Now, you know this because you're married to me. I've got real mixed feelings about introducing historical tragedies into a fictional scenario. I think it risks being a little bit demeaning to the actual real life people who suffered and died. And because I am just that person, I do feel a little bit of like, "Ooh," at this. Are you getting any of that? Or are you just like, wow, that's
Well,
setting the bar
it was
high?
it was very brief. It just was set in a historical context,
Mm,
um, spooky London and spooky
yeah,
Victorian times. It wasn't if it was. It didn't. It's not a part of the plot. It's not a plot point. Well,
no.
not yet, anyway. Um, so
And this is where I feel like I have to land is you can't be so precious about this because Jack the Ripper has entered into pop culture history to the point where he's almost like the boogeyman. But we now have a flying mask transition. Woo! And it's time for the credits, and your wife is silently rocking out. She is so excited. Um, what was your reaction? Because episode one didn't have this amazing opening credits sequence. What did you
why
feel
not?
about it?
Why do they have it? What wasn't in the first one?
Um, I hesitate to say this, but this credit sequence is kind of a meme for how much it spoils the plot that's coming after. So I think in episode one they were trying to hold it. It's like it's so good. You don't want to withhold it, but you also don't want to give too much away. I think that that was the reasoning for not giving it in episode one. But did it move you? Did you feel the like whoa of it all?
It doesn't hold a candle to the theme credits from Battle of the Planets, which was my favorite cartoon in the 80s.
Well, it's
Um,
interesting. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned 80s cartoons. Would it shock you to know that although this anime debuted in 2012, this song was specifically designed to evoke 1980s cartoon theme songs? Did it have that flavor for you?
no, yeah, I guess so. It wasn't as good, but it,
You are
yeah.
so wrong. Just sit there with your wrongness and be wrong. That's fine. I love these credits when I go to the gym. If you were to see me at the gym, there's a 50-50 chance that this is what I'm listening to. Credits are over, and we pan across the campus of an English university. And we don't know which one it is. It's not mentioned in the subtitles or anything. The narrator is silent, but we do get a sports commentator with no microphone, which I find kind of fantastic. It really makes me laugh that he's just there. And I have to imagine he's shouting, "This is what's happening. Oh my gosh, this play, that play." And he is not only commenting on the game, but he's giving us some really great exposition. Would you feel like this is seamless, babe? Did this like seem like a very smooth way to get this information in that I'm about to detail, or did it feel heavy-handed to you?
No, I didn't even. No, I thought it worked very well.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about the lack of the microphone thing in 1888. I guess that would be anachronistic. But then, we have a situation where there is a guy with blue hair and a mask which grabs onto people's faces.
Don't
So
say anymore. We're not going to talk about it yet. But yes, no, you're right. No, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. I never know, like, should I spoil within the discussion or not? I would really hope and pray that people have watched the episode before they listen to this. So, but yeah, I feel like it's a really smooth way to work in some exposition because 7 years have passed and we are meeting these characters as adults for the first time. We knew them as children, but now we're seeing adult Jonathan. So our handy exposition man, as I shall call him, announces that the ball has been caught by our hero, little on the nose, but I love it. Our hero, Jonathan Joestar, a gentle giant at 195 centimeters. Um,
yeah, well, that's all right. That just the whole thing just lost because we
you
weren't
lost it.
using
You lost you.
we
Yeah.
weren't using centimeters in England in 1888.
No, this is very true. And your wife is such a freaking nerd. 195 centimeters is 6'5". And I have even more information for you because Araki does not create characters without doing these insanely detailed character sheets. That's where he starts, which I think is part of the reason his characters feel so real. So we know all kinds of things about all of the characters in the JoJoverse. For example, I can tell you not only that Jonathan is 6'5", but he weighs 231 pounds. And although it is not mentioned in the anime, Dio is 6'1" or 185 centimeters, and he is 198 pounds. Big boys, would you agree?
Not small, not small.
They're not dainty creatures. Are you kind of like, why are these giants living in Victorian England when reaching, as someone who reads a lot of Victorian novels, I'm here to say 6 feet was impressive. And if someone is 6 feet, as is Laurie in Little Women, characters will talk about it and be like, holy cow, that's a big, big boy. Can't believe you're 6 feet tall. Does that seem odd to you?
Um, well, given that I didn't notice that there was a guy commentating without a microphone
No.
in 1888, the that specific anachronism, I have to say, went right over my head. Um, and also they're at Cambridge.
Yes.
I know that because the Cambridge play rugby in white and light blue poops, although
Yes.
it's sort of like in the final panel they went a bit green. But the opposition was wearing Oxford blue shirts, so that's Oxford.
Yeah.
So
And
they were
really
Oxford.
shamefully, your wife, having seen this anime multiple times, did not freaking notice. Where did we meet, honey?
Oh, I daren't say
Is it a secret?
it's a secret,
It's a
but it might
secret.
have something to do with the fact that I wasn't thrilled that they went to Cambridge.
Yeah, and and the fact that I'm deeply ashamed that I didn't even notice what teams
Well, I'm
these
not
two
entirely
teams
sure you
were.
know what sport they were playing, but anyway.
Hey, hey, I I have suffered through my share of rugby. I would argue more than my share of rugby. Circling back briefly to their immense body sizes, I just want to point this out because it was actually a choice on Araki's part to make Jonathan specifically, and to a lesser degree Dio, really, really extra big. And it was in order to make the characters seem literally larger than life. He wanted a mythic feel. A lot of people really love how gigantic um, Jonathan Joestar is. And it's part of a really interesting tradition. If you think about the time that this would have been drawn slash written rather than the time of the anime around 1986, um, if you think of other things that were going on in pop culture with male bodies, do any specific actors or cartoons leap to mind as like
Yeah, I mean
icons?
there was Danny DeVito and Michael J. Fox. So which is why I'm
I
very
mean,
surprised why they went down the route of them being so big. I
to
think
to
it
be
was
fair, to be
I
fair,
think
Michael
I
J.
mean
Fox was I mean, he was the ideal male for my generation around the time I was hitting adolescence. Like he
but
was the only
they
thing we
don't
ever
he doesn't
wanted.
he's not 6'5".
He's not 6'5", but can you think of somebody else who was maybe somebody who famously starred in a movie with Danny DeVito where they played brothers,
Um
who may have been a former governor of California?
I can't think of any Jamaican governors of California,
Oh,
but
you're the worst human being.
I think that you might be referring to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes, there was a massive trend in the 80s for massive dudes. And there is this incredible channel called The Lost Crusader. And I highly recommend his deep dive on this topic. He references the fact that there was this craze for mega big dudes in the 80s. So there's this like return to traditional masculinity and focus on getting really big and huge after the 60s and 70s, more like sylph version of men, like, oh God, what's his name? The kid from the Blue Lagoon. That was done. Now we needed big, strong men. So we get Rambo, we get Arnold and Predator, and notably, we get He Man, which I don't think was as big of a deal in the UK.
Well, it was one of those things that was on TV and on the afternoons. I can't even remember when it was on. I mean, I was aware of it.
It was
I loved it.
in America, it was huge. Like every little boy I know had 10 He Man figurines at a bare minimum. And they weren't dolls, they were action figures. Get it straight. And of course, there was also a property I mentioned last time, the Fist of the North Star, which Phantom Blood in particular is often framed as being kind of a ripoff of, with its gigantic, beefy protagonists. Anyway, the fact that JoJo is so huge means that even though he's being tackled by multiple other players, he just keeps moving. And then he's got like 4 or 5 guys on him. He finally can't keep moving forward. And our friend, the microphoneless sports commentator, says, wow, he's really determined. And now we have arrived at one of the most important, I would argue, maybe the single most important value in the JoJoverse, which is determination. or good old American resolve, or kakugo in Japanese, or determinazione in Italian. This is what every villain and every hero has to have. It's not negotiable. It's something that if you don't have it, that is the one unforgivable sin. You're going to get written out of the JoJoverse if you demonstrate that you lack determination. And I personally think that that's because when you think about what it is to be human, wanting things is one of the most fundamental aspects of this. Is this a good thing? A lot of religions would say no. But what do you think? How important do you think determination is, like in life or in fiction?
Well, in life, it's very important, but it can be kind of, you can have, there's this trope coming back to sport among England football fans, England soccer fans. It's like, oh no, he's got no passion, which is great, but you've got to have a certain degree of competence
To
go
back up
with
the
it,
passion?
to back up it. You know, God loves a trier, but you just got to say sometimes you got to have something interesting about you. I mean, I could be as determined as I wanted to be to become an NBA player, but I would at basketball. So yeah, determination is grand, but you gotta have a certain amount of nous. You gotta have something more than just determination. Otherwise, you're just a cannonball careening down a slope.
That's really interesting. Okay, let me press this question further. So we're in this world where the question of fate versus free will is going to be incredibly important. It already is incredibly important. How does determination factor in a universe where
I mean, your
perhaps
man
everything
Dio's
is
very
controlled by
determined, but you know,
he
he's as
is?
cunning as a fox. You know, he could be really
Mm,
determined, but if he was bone stupid, it would, you know,
mm.
it would be an incredibly short series, wouldn't it? I
It
mean, it would
would.
just be
It
like,
would.
I'm really determined.
Yeah.
I've just got caught. Oh well,
The
credits
end.
roll. It's
And
all
you
over.
know what's really interesting that you bring that up? You're already seeing that in him, which is, I think, really shows what an intelligent viewer you are, because Araki specifically designed Jonathan and Dio to have equal and opposite amounts of determination. He wanted them to be both super determined forces going in opposite directions. Speaking of Dio, so Jonathan is so determined, he keeps going until he can't go anymore. And then he has to throw the ball because in rugby,
Pass the ball, honey.
thank you. In rugby, don't get me, you have to correct me, but in rugby, you can't carry the ball. No, you can't throw the ball forward.
No, you can't propel. You can't throw the ball or pass the ball forward. So it would what he gave to Dio would be called in American football a lateral. Rugby is surprisingly popular in Japan. What he's done is he's your man has managed to, with his big size, suck in a whole load of defenders. So there's loads of space on the rest of the pitch where the defenders are, so he can pass the ball to Dio, and Dio can.
Leap up in the air and pose. And this is kind of
Wasn't
a
a very
big,
good pass because if it had been a good pass, he wouldn't have had to jump in the air to get it. But anyway,
I
that's
mean,
for another
that's
day.
he had like 7 people on top of him. Give him a little slack. This was kind of a reveal that they are teammates and they are cooperating with each other. Even though Dio has a lot of bad qualities, which we have firmly established, he is still working harder than he needs to. And to me, that is the essence of determination. And we're seeing what you just pointed out is they're a fantastic team because JoJo has the power and the endurance, and Dio has the speed and agility. Okay, so we know that Dio's doing law. Did you notice what Jonathan is doing for his degree? The announcer does
He's doing
say,
archaeology, and I did history as my first degree, which is
"Oh, maybe you're a little Jonathan."
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a good boy like Jonathan is. Anyway, so they win the game. And then we have a manly hand clasp with a really strong pose that, man, I wish I had a poster of I could put over our bed. I know you'd enjoy that. And they congratulate each other. And Dio says, let's go tell our father about our victory. Interesting. He's been so adversarial. This is like such a moment of, hey, we're family. Did you have the sense like, hey, maybe they have made up their differences? Maybe Dio has turned a new leaf after having all of this love and nurturing from the Joestars?
I didn't think that was going to happen. I think that he was maybe saying it just to piss him off.
I mean, maybe. My interpretation is that he's saying it to be, as I mentioned last time in Eddie Haskell, he's like, see how good I am? Aren't I good? You can trust me, like a used car salesman. But how is JoJo going to react? Well, he freeze frames, as is so often the case in this show. When you're having a big moment, you freeze frame. And his cooler color palette, it's sort of a more naturalistic color palette that we've been seeing through the game, switches to half red and half light and dark blue checkerboard. I'm such an English major, but I really think it's meant to hammer home this opposites polarity, white, black, good, evil, strong, fast dichotomy that you see between Dio and JoJo. Um, so he's now got this interesting color palette going on, and we get Jonathan's interior monologue. He acknowledges, yep, I've been treating Dio like my brother, and he is, he's been a good son. But Jonathan lets us, the audience, know in kind of a Shakespearean moment, he has never forgotten or forgiven Dio's early villainies. And we get a little bit of a flashback to all the terrible things Dio did last episode. Um, so this is a very short run story. I can never remember. Is it 10 episodes? Is it 12 episodes? My bias is I kind of would have liked to let the suspense and ambiguity linger a bit. Like, let's think that maybe Dio really has changed his ways before we get confirmation that it's not so great. But do you think that maybe there was a reason for showing JoJo being suspicious right here?
No, I don't think so. I think that it was. I don't think. I think it just sort of just to rattle the story along a bit. I mean, given what's happened, I don't think he's going to forgive and forget.
No, I could never forgive or forget somebody who killed my dog. That is like, I mean,
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
oh Jesus, did you really?
Well, just momentarily, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't, I would not get over that. The whole Erina thing is really bad, but it's, for me, it's the Danny thing I could never, ever get past. Um, I think that this is just my thesis. I think Iraqi is just letting us know you might think that JoJo is a big dumb ape,
because good is dumb.
but no, JoJo is not just another pretty face on a big beefy body. Um, and I think that we could risk losing sympathy for JoJo if he's too sweet, too trusting, if that makes sense. Because it's counterintuitive, but you can get really frustrated with characters who are just like, oh, gee, I heard a strange noise from the basement. I'd better go check it out. It's probably just a cat, even though I am in a horror movie. I will go down by myself and just see. Okay, so now I love this moment. Full disclosure, we have the reporters mobbing Dio. The first reporter comes up to Dio and is like, tell us about how close you and JoJo are. And Dio fakes humble and says, oh, please ask about the whole team.
I thought it was like a take on vapid sports journalism questions. I didn't because I watch more sports journalism than you do, and
That
I'm
is
just
true.
like,
Well, actually, and here's the thing, because there's another reporter who then presses and says, like, no, come on, give us more details about your relationship with JoJo. He doesn't say it like that. I hear it like that. And in my mind, I'm thinking of, you know, what are you asking for, sir? What exactly do you want to know? You really want to know about how close these two men are.
That's because in your mind, everybody's either sleeping with each other or they were wanting to sleep with each other.
Don't listen to him, folks. My mind is as pure and clean as this charming green dish soap. Moving on from that sort of supernatural diversion,
We're brothers.
we get Dio's inner monologue and find out, yeah, how does he feel about JoJo? Well, he's been faking nice. JoJo's a grinning imbecile. And now that Dio's of age, it's time to execute his plan. And this is where I have to ask you sort of three questions. Number one, do you feel like you are seeing some growth between episode 1 Dio and episode 2 Dio and how he's handling this whole situation?
Yeah, he's becoming a little bit more cunning.
He definitely is. Do you remember what his big resolution was at the end of episode 1? He vowed to master his emotions. Yeah, he needs to smile and play the villain, to invoke a bit of Shakespeare here. And he's doing a really good job of it because everyone's like, oh, Dio, you're so sweet. You don't want to take the credit. You don't want to be the star. You want to give the whole team their props. So he's grown, he's changed in some ways. Question number 2, Dio says Jonathan is a grinning imbecile. Is he right? From what we've seen up to this point in this episode, which is like 5 minutes, we've talked about it for so long, but is he right that JoJo's an imbecile?
So he's got first in archaeology. I don't see how he can be an imbecile. And he doesn't do a lot of grinning either, as far as I can tell.
He doesn't. And what did we just find out 2 seconds ago from his interior monologue? He doesn't trust him. He specifically says, like, I've been treating him like a brother, but I don't trust him. And Dio, who thinks he's so cunning and Machiavellian, is over here going, ha ha, he thinks I'm his brother. He's so stupid. He trusts me, not realizing that Jonathan actually doesn't trust him. I feel like there's something here to do with the concept of the theory of self in psychology, where little kids, if they cover their eyes, they think the people around them can't see them because the kid can't see the other people. So Dio feels like, I'm being so clever, he can't see through me, without taking into account that possibly JoJo is clever enough to see through him in a way that Dio can't see through. It's interesting. Okay, third question. He's going to execute his plan. What do you think his plan is at this moment in time, without reference ahead in the episode? What would you imagine his plan to be?
Well, I thought at this point he's going to do away with old man JoJo and take away the mansion and all the profits and the money and
it's a fair guess.
And the nice horse and cart. So
yes, the carriage of doom, actually. Now we cut to stately Joestar Manor. Snow is falling. We're inside. There's a fire, and George is sick in bed. Does this scene look familiar to you?
Oh, it's Dickens. There's loads of Dickens like this, isn't there?
There is loads of Dickens like this, and having mentioned Nicholas Nickleby last time, I will now say Martin Chuzzlewit. This strand of the plot may or may not have been taken from Martin Chuzzlewit, but also, does this seem familiar from the previous episode at all?
His dad. His real dad.
Dio's real dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same scene with the fire, lying in bed, coughing. It's the same thing, but now it's in a mansion. And we've got our two brothers visiting to see if George is okay. And George tells us, actually, the doctors think that I should be in the hospital. And Dio, of course, always has a quick answer. Hospitals only care about profit. So they're just going to kill you off. Do you see the logic in this argument? Because I have trouble following what he's trying to say. Wouldn't it be
Um,
more profitable for the hospital to keep him alive for a long time so they can get the bill up?
yeah, I guess that's a good point. I don't really understand what he's on about there. Perhaps he's not as bright as he thinks he is.
Yeah, or maybe, I mean, the one thing that I can think of is that for Dio, everything is about money. So this is like he only sees people as valuable in terms of what money he can get from them, and that's what he's projecting onto the world. But what's George's reaction to this really weird and unconvincing chain of logic? Aye, aye, sir. Yep. Okay, Dio, I'll do whatever you say. And he does it in such an instant way that it's almost like Dio is the father and George is the obedient son. I got nothing here. I just notice it. I'm reporting it. If anyone wants to talk about it in the comments, I'd be really curious to get your take on it. But someone's not convinced. JoJo is really worried. Why isn't George getting better? And then George gives a little speech, which is really cute. He's so proud of both of his boys, but he only takes the time to specifically address one of his boys. Which could it be? Yes, it's his favorite, Dio. And he tells Dio, pursue your ambitions, whatever they may be. I will give you aid in any way I can. And this is the question that I've seen a lot of people ask in a lot of fan forums and YouTube videos. Why does Dio need a plan? He's already perfectly situated. And George has just explicitly promised him, whatever you want to do with your life, Dio, my money is your money. I will do whatever it takes. Is there any need to get rid of George? Couldn't he just like live his life and be successful with George's money in the natural course of things?
Yeah. Well, as I say, I mean, I don't look at it like that. I think that yeah, he's got to this point by being extraordinarily Machiavellian with George. Would George have got to that point if he hadn't poisoned him?
Well, but the poison is immaterial. Have you seen any indication that he's treated him as anything other than like his firstborn son, essentially?
No, but I
Was
haven't. We've been missing for 7 years. So, but yeah, I guess
I
he could have
mean,
been. But
do
I
you remember
didn't.
those scenes from episode one where JoJo's eating dinner with George and Dio, and George is like, "JoJo, go to your room. Dio is the only person with manners around here." And George is
Yeah,
giving
I
them
do
lessons,
remember
and
that.
he's like,
Yeah, yeah.
"JoJo, you're so effing stupid. Why can't you be smart like Dio? Like, he's already the favorite son. He doesn't need to do anything." I just think I think that this could tie into the nature versus nurture question and the story so beloved of every screenwriter in the 1990s, The Scorpion and the Frog. Scorpion wants to get across the river. He can't swim. He asks the frog for a ride. And the frog says, no, I don't want to because you'll sting me. And the scorpion says, that's crazy. If I sting you while you're swimming, we'll both die. And the frog is like, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Okay, get on my back. And he swims halfway across. Halfway across the river, the scorpion stings him. And as the frog is dying, he said, why did you sting me? And the scorpion says,
I can't help it.
it's in my nature. Why do I say it that way? Because my primary reference for this is the Crying Game. But it was used over and over again by like every screenwriter from whenever the Crying Game came out to like 10 to 15 years after that. Okay, anyway, so George has promised unconditional support to Dio, And we get a close up on Dio's beautiful evil eyes. And he says, I couldn't have done any of this without you. Thank you so much, sir. You rescued me from calamity. Now, we were just talking about Kakugo, determination. Calamity, or yakusai, is another gigantic keyword for the entire series. We saw it in episode 1 with the carriage accident, right? That was a calamity. George being an incredible stupid head and thinking that Dario was trying to save him was a further calamity. Adopting Dio was a calamity. It gets into this nature and nurture thing again, not to beat a dead horse, but Dio has had such good nurture for 7 years. He had such bad nurture for the previous 12. Is it his nature? Is it his nurture? Where is the calamity? Is it something external to him, or is it something about his absolute essence that calamity is going to surround him? We don't know yet. It's really early, not only in the JoJo series, but in the Phantom Blood story. It's really early to make these pronouncements. I just think it's interesting to keep these things at the front of our mind, especially since we are now going to cut to the Joestar family library, a really awesome big room with a lot of bookshelves. And Jonathan is alone and he's experimenting with your favorite character.
The mask.
The mask. Yes, finally. And he is doing his inner monologue and he mentions that it's really important to him because it was his mother's. Interesting. I have my whole interior like fan fiction retcon of the story of the mask. We won't get into it now, but maybe I'll do a short about it someday. He already knows that blood activates the spikes, and he has been trying to figure out who made the mask to really cement his reputation as a superstar archaeology student. Honey, as a viewer in this moment, are you so excited the mask is back?
Yeah, the map that I want to know what this thing does. I mean, it's very, very important to me. I mean, I want to see people, what happens when people put this thing on. It's going to be awesome.
I think it's so weird that nobody's tried to put it on in the either like 19 or 22, depending on how we're framing this timing. Nobody's put it on in all that time. That's wild to me. But anyway, so he's doing his research. He needs another book. He goes up on a ladder to get something off of the shelf, and he knocks off a book, and a letter that has the name Dario Brando on it falls out of the book. Is this our calamity, or is it luck?
Well, I mean, obviously, it might end up, what's in the letter might end up thwarting Dio, so it might be luck.
It might be luck, but for Dio, if it thwarts him, it's a calamity. This is like the double-edged thing of luck and calamity. Like luck for the scorpion is calamity for the frog, and vice versa, potentially. Then we cut to our iconic checkerboard floor, which I am noticing the show always goes back to when it's time for a Jonathan and Dio conflict. We get the checkerboard. Dio is carrying George's medicine up to him. Cut back to the library. Jonathan has read the letter, and we didn't see him read the letter, but this is post reading the letter. He is so shocked. Time for a color palette change. He is purple and black, which to me indicates he is in total despair, but the letter in his hand is red, which could mean urgency, danger, blood. And we get our big floating sound effects. I can't remember if we've talked about this, but we must have. The hiragana sound effects are the equivalent of the 1960s Batman and Robin show when you see pow, bam on the screen. And to me, it is just as exciting and just as effective as it is on that show. Every time I see the sound effects, I'm like, yes. JoJo monologues to himself that all has been made clear, but we, the audience, don't know yet. And here's where visual storytelling can be superior to prose. There are some places where I feel like written fiction, straight prose, is more effective than visual storytelling. And there's other places where visual storytelling is clearly the superior medium. Here's one of those cases. We get some intercuts. We see Dio switching out the paper packet of medicine for something else that we can see is slightly different in the way that it's folded. So we can tell this is not the same paper packet when we see it later. We get a series of flashbacks and stills. Dio is in, I swear to God, he is in the antique shop where the dad buys Gizmo in the movie Gremlins. And then we're back, and Jonathan confronts Dio with the letter. And as always in a JoJo villain confrontation, it's instructive to notice who has the higher ground and which one is in the position to say, "Oh, you're approaching me?" And when people talk smack about my goodest boy Jonathan and make unfavorable comparisons, it's moments like this I want to draw their attention to. The letter is from Dario to George, detailing the symptoms of his last illness, the illness we saw Dio nursing him through in episode 1. These symptoms include chest pain, swollen fingers, and coughing. These are all the symptoms that George currently has. These are also symptoms that true crime fan wife is like, I know these symptoms. They're the symptoms of arsenic poisoning. But I don't think it's really supposed to be arsenic because arsenic is freaking everywhere in the Victorian age. That's why I know about it. It's so frequently used. All you had to do was actually like go to the corner shop and buy some rat poison, or you could soak the wallpaper and get the arsenic out of the dye and use that to poison somebody. You don't have to go to a shop that sells mogwai to get arsenic. So I think it's meant to be something else. And if you're as curious as I am about what this mysterious poison might be, I recommend the channel Doc Off Call with his amazing reaction where he really breaks it down for us and comes up with a very likely candidate. Dio is trying to play cool and goes, "What are you trying to say?" And in just that tone of voice. And Jonathan seizes the medicine packet off the tray. Dio grabs his wrist and pose. I love this pose. It is an echo of an earlier pose in this episode. It's the handshake of like, yay, we won the rugby game together. And now we have a contest of resolve, kakugo, determination. Jonathan cannot look Dio in the eyes because he doesn't have proof that Dio's really trying to poison his father. And Dio, being the sly fox he is, offers JoJo a chance to back down. He's banking on the idea that JoJo's resolve will not be equal to this confrontation. He says, "Just give me the medicine back and we will pretend none of this ever happened." For me, when I was watching this for the first time, I was kind of surprised by Jonathan's next move, which is because I thought he was either going to punch him or capitulate. And I really wasn't sure because he's such a sweetie pie. I was not sure. Instead, he says, "Dio, okay, I'll do that if you can swear on the honor of your father Dario as a gentleman that this medicine is safe." And again, my reaction as a first-time viewer is, God, you're dumb.
Good is dumb.
I'm thinking to myself, Jonathan is such a little cinnamon bun that he thinks his father's honor means anything to Dio. However, he's right. The Achilles heel of Dio's temper has been activated, and he crashes out. He starts ranting, Dario deserved to die. He punches JoJo, and just like in their first boxing match, he tries to get his thumb into JoJo's eye, but he anticipates the thumb in his eye. He catches it, and he has quite a transformational moment. This wind that comes out of nowhere is blowing through his hair. He's sort of lit really heroically, and he shouts, "You hurt father!" And he picks him up and he throws him over the railing. And he announces that he is going to find out what the medicine is and take it to the police, which I think is still kind of dumb. Like, you don't need to tell Dio that. You don't need to tell Dio what you're planning to do. But Dio is like over the staircase and he is alive and he's injured, but he's not paralyzed. Does that seem realistic to you? Were you like, huh? Or are you just like, oh, it's a cartoon?
It did cross my mind that this was going to bring Dio to a bit of a premature end, because I thought you don't land on your land after that.
It's a marble tile floor. The iconic checkerboard floor is not carpet. I mean, I guess it's a cartoon, but it's interesting. And at this point, Dio's asking himself a question that I think is central to the whole series. He had everything he wanted this far away from him. It was almost in his grasp. It was ruined by calamity, but was it fate? And Dio says, no, it wasn't fate. It was my father. He vexes me even now. And we get a series of really sad flashbacks. We see Dario beating Dio when Dio was little. We see Dario, quote unquote, driving mother to an early grave. We see Dario looking like a literal monster. His face is all distorted. He's got a bottle of liquor. His tongue is out. And Dio says, knowing that this cursed blood flows through my veins is enough to drive me mad. And the color palette of Dio, once again, when there's a big emotional moment, we get a new color palette. Suddenly he's red. Even the whites of his eyes are red. And this shows how angry he is. But it also emphasizes blood, because that blood in his veins is the issue. So the title of this part of JoJo is Phantom Blood, and blood can have a lot of meanings. It can be literal blood. It can also be this idea of a bloodline, your family blood. Blood is thicker than water. And here in this moment, I think Dio is raising the question that biology is destiny, which is a pretty popular opinion. That's not a wild card opinion. And right in this moment, just this isolated moment, do you feel like Araki, our author, is saying it's nature or it's nurture with the flashbacks, with the blood?
I think, well, there's so much sort of like blood and references to blood that it would have to be nature, wouldn't it?
It kind of feels that way to me. But then there's the balance of you're seeing all the terrible things that Dario did to him. Like, Dio had an inarguably abusive childhood, but then so many people have really abusive childhoods and they don't grow up and poison people. And in fact, many people who start out with a truly terrible parental figure become exceptionally loyal and protective if they're lucky enough to find a better mentor later down the road. Okay, Dio is down bad. Meanwhile, Jonathan is telling George, who is still sick in bed, I'm going to London, Pops, and you're only allowed to take medicine from these 5 doctors I've recruited to come live in the house because we're rich as hell. He chooses not to warn George about Dio. Is that a good strategy?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I mean, it could create problems if he turns out to be wrong.
Yeah, I think that there is something here with what we saw in episode 1. Do you remember what JoJo's story goal is? He wants to be a gentleman. Would a gentleman accuse somebody without proof? No. And I think it also shows a certain pragmatism. Don't make George choose, because there's a real chance he's not going to choose you. It's sad to say, but Dio is kind of the favorite. However, because Jonathan doesn't give him any reasons, George says, okay, just like he said, okay, Dio, I won't go to the hospital. He says, okay, JoJo, I'll do exactly what you tell me to. And he says, his reasons are a mystery to me, but I trust the boy with my life. It's a bit of a change of tune, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I kind of thought that he was something had happened to make him more trusting.
I think so too. Do you have any theories what that could be?
I wasn't entirely sure, no.
Well, we'll talk about it more towards the end, but let's keep that in the back of our minds. Okay, so JoJo's off to find the evidence. Meanwhile, Dio has a plan. Dio always has a plan.
I've got a plan so cunning you could put a tail on it and call it a weasel.
He's going to kill JoJo and make it the perfect crime before justice can catch up with him. So he goes into JoJo's study or library or whatever the heck that room is, and Jimmy's opened the desk drawer. Now he has the mask and he's leafing through JoJo's notes. He is looking through a book. There's like a line drawing of some ancient art, and the caption says, Sacrifice of a God, which is kind of interesting if you think about the name Dio. But we'll leave that there. Did you notice this picture? Did you notice the art style and what culture it's from?
I thought it was Mayan.
I only can correct you on this because I know the lore so much. It's Aztec, but really close. Really close. Were you surprised? Because you thought it looked kind of Japanese.
I was always prepared to be corrected on that.
No, it's fine. I mean, I really think that it does look very Japanese because, the mangaka is Japanese and those will be influences that are acting on him. But it is, in fact, an Aztec mask. And Dio plans to activate the spikes on JoJo, and then no one's going to recognize what is this weapon. So it will be the perfect crime. Enough Dio stuff. We are back with the carriage of doom. We look at the interior and we see that Jonathan is going to London and he's wearing some pretty cool clothes. He's wearing Sherlock Holmes's outfit down to the deerstalker, which is a very bold choice. I guess it makes sense because he's about to go solve a murder mystery in Victorian London, or an attempted murder mystery. And speaking of detectives, I hate to be a narc, but this is running really long, so we'll call it right here and meet you back at the same channel this time next week to explore Ogre Street.